your meeting, Mr. Chairman.
And Jim, can you amend the agenda to have Wade, or Wade does go before director's report? I don't have the agenda.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Right after approval of the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, you can start us.
We're on now?
You bet.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the November meeting of the Commission on Aging Well. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first item is the approval of the minutes. Everybody received the draft minutes via email and had a chance to review them. Are there any additions or corrections?
I have a question.
Yes.
Wasn't the on page 2, I think it's the 13th bullet.
Give us a chance to count.
It says that we collaborated with pharmacy to offer comprehensive mediation reviews
Oh,
to the medication.
yes.
Mediation reviews are helpful, but
Yeah, I don't think we're qualified to do that.
Change that to medication.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Barbara, that you found?
pardon me?
Anything else that you found?
No.
Anybody else? Okay, if there are no, yes, go ahead.
I would again like to thank Jill for good comprehensive minutes that makes it really easy for me to report out to council what we've discussed here.
Sure. You're welcome.
Yes, I would agree with that for you, Jill, to be being in the meeting and doing minutes at the same time. And then, I know in men's group, I do the summary at the end, and I can't remember a lot of stuff that's happened. I get too involved in our discussions, but
Yeah.
you do a wonderful job. I agree,
Thank
Dorothy.
you. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further additions or corrections, do I hear a motion to approve the amended minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded that?
Ruth.
Ruth? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay, let's, I don't see any public appearances. So our next item will be to move on to the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative with Wade. Is Wade here? There he is. Okay.
Morning, can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Morning.
Yeah, do you want me to jump right in?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
I will share my screen. All right, do people see a PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, well, again, thanks for having me. I know some of you, for those I don't, I'm Wade Thompson with the city's planning department. And today, just gonna spend a few minutes, maybe about 15 minutes, talking about what we're calling our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. And I know some folks might be familiar with that, so I'll just kind of give a brief overview. And then we'll talk more specifically about a specific piece of the initiative. We're calling it our North Fitchburg Road Neighborhood Hub. So again, today we'll talk I'll use the acronym HNI, Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. So we'll talk big picture, and then we'll talk again about a specific piece of the HNI puzzle. So just, again, kind of big picture, again, probably a review for a lot of folks, but when we talk about healthy neighborhoods, there's a few things we're talking about. We're really talking about equity and access to opportunities for our neighborhood residents. We're talking about diversity in land use, housing stock, and people. And then we're talking about components in those neighborhoods that are integrated, stable, and sustainable. So things like education, employment, housing, recreation, public safety, and environment all working together to, again, move towards that idea of a healthy neighborhood. So now we have kind of a basic understanding of what a healthy neighborhood is. Let's talk about why they're important. I think generally speaking, as a city, we want to be very efficient with our allocation of resources, our allocation of city taxpayer dollars. So I think we want to be really conscious of getting upstream on some of these issues. You know, certainly when we talk about issues in our neighborhoods, we put resources into our neighborhoods, but it's a question of whether we do it proactively upstream or reactively and downstream. And I think this initiative is really about getting upstream and addressing some root causes of issues in our neighborhoods. To that point, We want to make sure that we also create perceptions in our neighborhood that lead to future growth opportunities. Secondarily, I think very obviously we think healthy neighborhoods provide various benefits to our residents that live, work, and play in them, social benefits, economic benefits, and environmental benefits. And we also think those benefits accrue to the residents and regions in which those neighborhoods are located. And then finally, the third point, a little bit more philosophically, I think we think this idea of healthy neighborhoods really builds community. That idea of kind of this idea of fellowship resulting from shared interests and common goals. So generally speaking, I think the city understands we have an interest and a role to play in planning, building, and maintaining these types of neighborhoods within our borders. So to that point, about 2 years ago, the city did adopt what we call the H&I, the initiative. Again, and it's really about being strategic, cooperative, comprehensive, and integrated. As again, we work to address specific issues in 3 of our northern neighborhoods, and we'll talk about those neighborhoods more specifically as well. So again, this started small. We had a 2-page memo back in 2016 that outlined some of the issues in our neighborhoods. And as a result of that, we've built it into a strategic plan with 16 action items that we are currently working to implement. So these are our 3 neighborhoods under our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. We call them priority neighborhoods. And again, they were identified based on a lot of the issues that we just talked about. I think folks are probably familiar with these areas, but just kind of moving west to east or left to right. If people can follow my cursor, we've got our Verona Road West neighborhood. So kind of the area just to the west of Verona Road and north of McKee. Some folks might know it as Jamestown, that area. And then moving across Verona Road, we've got, I guess, traditionally what we would know in the region is kind of the Allied Drive area. So Allied Drive is in Madison. That's the little light colored finger here, but everything that surrounds it, that's all Fitchburg. So we're calling that our Belmar Renaissance on the Park neighborhood. So kind of the Duns Marsh, Belmar area. And then moving to the east, our last neighborhood, the North Fishhatchee Road neighborhood. Again, I think folks are probably familiar with that. That's kind of our gateway to the city, for lack of a better term. We've got our nine-hole golf course right here. The new senior housing project is kind of on my cursor right there. Beltline's obviously just to the north off the screen. And we'll talk in more detail about that neighborhood in a few minutes. But I think just kind of wrapping up this idea of healthy neighborhoods big picture. When we talk about stakeholders, folks that have an interest in this initiative, it's not just city staff, it's not just city officials, it's not just city committees, it's our nonprofit partners and it's our residents all working together, again, to move towards this idea of healthy neighborhoods. And just as a final kind of key piece here, as a planner, I think as a planning, kind of the industry I work in, we understand that these neighborhoods don't just happen. They require good planning and continued investment. And we'll talk more about that next. So when I look at kind of the H&I big picture, to kind of break it down into some more digestible pieces, I talk about the 3 Ps, the idea of people, programs, and places. So right now, I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of places in our healthy neighborhoods. And more specifically, we'll talk about what we're calling our North Fishhatchee Road Neighborhood Hub. So in terms of goals of the hub project, we wanted to create a multifaceted plan for this hub concept, and we'll talk about what that means. And then we'll talk more about plan, process, and timeline. We'll talk about how we engage people around the hub plan. We'll talk about what the hub plan is and isn't at this point, and then we'll talk about the hub plan itself. So first off, I just want to kind of just acknowledge that there was a lot of folks involved in getting to the point that we're at today with the hub project. And certainly want to thank Jill. Her name's not on the screen, but her and I have been talking over the past months. I've been checking in with her as we've been developing the plan to make sure senior interests are represented in the plan. So certainly appreciate her interest, and obviously you guys inviting me here today. I want to thank you for your interest as well. So as it relates to project goals, again, we want to create a multifaceted hub plan that does 3 things. And I think the first 2 things I really want to focus on. So the first thing would be to meet the social and recreational needs of our residents in that neighborhood, thereby enhancing their quality of life and their access to opportunities. So that's, I guess, goal one. Goal two, and probably just as important, we want to really have this hub serve as a catalyst to assist in stabilizing, quote unquote, that corridor with the idea of hopefully spurring new investment and enhancing property values while also making sure we don't displace our current residents up there. And then the third goal, which we won't talk about today, but it is important as well. We want to make sure we look towards ensuring the long-term financial sustainability of our golf course. Again, that's a city-owned property, a city asset. So we want to make sure that that property has a stable financial future. So talking a little bit more about project goals 1 and 2, again, that idea of really serving the neighborhood. I think as we thought about this hub plan, we wanted to create a space that's quote unquote on 7 days a week, year round. And we want to provide something for everyone. So not just an area for, young children and their parents, but something for teens, something for young professionals, and obviously something for our senior population as well. And we also want to make sure when we develop this hub plan, we meet the needs of not just the current residents, but also what we see as potential future residents. That corridor is developing, so we want to make sure we address future residents' needs as well. We also want to get other parts of our community into that area. Some folks may not be familiar with that neighborhood, may have certain perceptions of that neighborhood. We want to get those folks in there as well to experience the benefits or the opportunities that neighborhood can offer. And then finally, we really want to look at potentially attracting visitors as well. I think the quote at the bottom of the page really sums up, one of our primary goals as we talk about this hub plan. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details here, but this slide just kind of touches on our plan process and timeline. I think the take-home message here is we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, over a year, working on this thing. We've engaged with, again, city officials, city staff, nonprofit partners, and most importantly, our neighborhood residents to really figure out what this hub plan should look like. So in terms of next steps, and Dorothy can maybe help me out on this a little bit later, but my understanding is portions of the hub project have been included in next year's budget for implementation. I will talk more about those specific pieces, but we are in really good shape with moving forward on implementing some of these hub pieces. So that should happen, in the next year plus. So just quickly talking about what the plan is and isn't. What we'll see next is a concept. Now that we've got the go-ahead to implement specific pieces, we will work with a consultant to really hash out the concept in much more detail. But again, what you'll see in the next few slides is a concept at this point. It isn't a detailed architectural blueprint or floor plan. That will come next, as I just mentioned. And again, it is at this point a little bit malleable. What you see in this concept may not be the exact thing you see in the final design, but I think it'll be very close. So again, just moving into the plan itself, we're talking 3 major components or phases to the plan. The first big component is what I call enhanced park space on the north side of Traceway Drive. The second piece is moving to the south of Traceway Drive, and we're talking a large footprint neighborhood center type facility. So we'll focus on those 2 pieces today. The third piece, which we won't focus on, is improvements to our city-owned golf course, also on the south side of Traceway. So before we move into the concept, I just want to quickly talk about the engagement with stakeholders. So the slide in front of you here kind of outlines the things we heard as we engaged with our stakeholders. For those of you familiar with, traditionally underserved neighborhoods, what you're going to see on the slide in front of you, it should come as no surprise. A lot of the things that we know we're missing in these neighborhoods, but it's really good to hear them quantified through some engagement efforts. And I just kind of categorize them into 3 categories. So desired outdoor amenities, and you see kind of a laundry list there. Desired indoor amenities, and then desired services. And I think if I really had to summarize, what we were hearing is a lot of, resources, care, and then just places for the neighborhood to gather and integrate and do constructive things. So some really good themes here.
Wade, can I interrupt a second?
Sure.
I noticed on that previous slide there on the outdoor amenities, one of the things that for seniors is really a popular senior activity is pickleball, and I don't see any pickleball on outdoor things at all. Have you considered that at all?
Great thought. Hold that thought. We will get to that, and I think you'll be very happy with what we came up with.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of the plan, the concept. So again, to orientate people, we have Traceway Drive. Right here, North of Sketcher Road is kind of off the screen, running perpendicular. Our golf course is kind of at the bottom of the screen here. This big white long shape is that new senior housing that went up on North Fishkatchee Road. And again, to kind of orientate people, phase one or component one is the north side of Traceway. And we'll talk about all these different pieces and we'll get to Jim's point. Phase two is a neighborhood center facility down here. And then again, golf course improvements would be down here as well. So just quickly talking about some of the pieces on the north side of Traceway, again, that component one. Obviously we're looking at drawing people to the site, so we're talking about a parking lot. And then this is kind of to Jim's point, you'll see better images of this, but this is a large footprint, hard court, recreation / social gathering area. So basically think about, basketball court, a pickleball court, a tennis court, basically a covered area that could serve all those purposes. We could interchange out recreational infrastructure at various times of the day as demand dictates. And then it could also serve for various events, think about farmers markets or, festivals, art fairs, those sorts of things. So we'll see some images of that. And then moving to the west, a really nice shelter with some indoor rentable space, potentially some space for, city staff. There could be some part-time folks up there that kind of keep eyes on the site. Certainly if there was an interest in a senior center presence, we could accommodate that as well. And then kind of around the shelter, there's kind of this hard court area or hard surfaced area that could serve as kind of an outdoor picnic area, but also potentially a professional food and drink concession. So, maybe a little coffee stand, you could go and read the paper, that sort of thing. Moving north, the brown area is kind of a really, really cool playground concept. Again, we want to attract kids. So something, think along the lines of like a McKee Farms Park type playground with potentially a small scale water feature. And then moving north of that feature we're pretty excited about. If I can get my cursor here. I think as a city, we sometimes struggle for identity, but I think one thing we do really hang our hat on in terms of identity is this idea of biking. So what we're proposing here is some kind of bike feature to draw, maybe teenagers. At this point, we're calling it a pump track, and you'll see images of it, but basically kind of a bike obstacle course that kids can hop on their bike and ride around on. And then moving kind of down here, the green area, we talked about attracting young professionals. I don't like the term millennials, but I'll use that. I think maybe the idea is maybe kind of a flex space with some opportunities for yard games. You've probably seen, when you go tailgating, a lot of younger professionals are playing a lot of these yard games, so we could certainly accommodate that type of use. And then, so that kind of wraps up phase one. What I also do want to mention is this corridor. We call it our pedestrian spine. So when we were looking at planning for this hub concept, we really wanted to be conscious of connecting the north side of Traceway to the south side. So we think that pedestrian spine, which we'll see more images of in the next couple slides, really gets to that idea of connecting north and south. And then moving south, again, we do have that large footprint community center type building with an adjoining parking lot. So kind of with that big picture, like eagle eye view, let's kind of move into well, I guess first off, let's talk about phasing. So again, per our city budgets, we're looking at a phase one, north side of Traceway, probably in next year. We'll talk about breaking ground. And then that phase two, That orange piece, that larger footprint neighborhood center, that's at least a couple years out. So again, just kind of a close-up of the phase one. We'll talk more about that. All the pieces I just mentioned. Again, parking lot, hard court recreation slash social gathering area, shelter, patio space, playground, pump track, yard games area, and then that pedestrian connecting spine as well. All right, so some images. So this is a rendering looking, I guess, north from Traceway Drive. Again, Traceway Drive is right here. So again, those pieces we just talked about, we have our parking lot. This is that hard court space that could serve pickleball, basketball, tennis, and also, you know, host events. Our really nice shelter, kind of in the back, you can't quite see it yet, our bike track, our playground, and right in the foreground here is that pedestrian spine. So I think this image is really kind of gives a good idea of what that space could look like. You know, it could also serve as not just a connecting space, but also an event space. You see some of the food carts that are mocked up on that pedestrian spine as well.
Question.
Sure.
Am I seeing correctly that you have a roof?
Yep.
What is that? I just
A roof here.
yeah, I just
Yep.
just gotta hit the button here. There we go. There's a roof over what looked to be like the pickleball area, but
Yep.
it did not cover the basketball court, right?
Yeah, maybe it's hard to see, but basically the roof would cover the entirety of that hard court area.
Oh, all of it.
Yeah, so maybe you can't see it, but it's like at this point it's a double winged.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see the second one over there. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that whole area would be covered. Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like you have solar panels for that.
Yep. Yeah, we can certainly talk about that, but I think the idea here too, you know, I think the city also has a real good reputation for sustainability. We talked about that being a key piece of our initiative. So yeah, as we look to implement and construct the hub concept, we certainly want to, you know, move towards this idea of sustainability and environmental friendly. And even with some of the landscaping, I think we can really move towards that goal. Yep.
Okay, and the roof, you know, I used to play basketball, so I'm concerned that the roof is not high enough for a nice arch jump shot.
Yep, and that's, like I said earlier, so this is just a concept. So as we, you know, move to that next specific design, we will make sure to accommodate all those issues that could come up with use of these areas.
Okay.
So, you know, and we'll have a consultant that's an expert in designing these types of facilities. So, yeah, good point, but we will address all those technical issues. Yep.
Okay.
Question. I can't tell if those vertical poles are meant to be pedestrian lighting, but I didn't see any pedestrian lighting on the previous slide on your north-south corridor.
Yep, and again, those are things that'll come in the design, the next design phase. I guess to that point, we have been in touch with our police department. You know, just like I've been in touch with Jill throughout the process, we've been in touch with them as well. And I think certainly as we develop this site, we want to be very conscious of public safety, you know, lighting and orientation of elements to make sure we have, you know, sight lines. So all those things will be addressed in the next design phase.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so yeah, so we'll just kind of, you know, run through some various images, renderings of different parts of the site. This is, I guess, looking northwest. Again, you're kind of looking towards North Fish Hatchery Road. You get a better sense of maybe some potential landscaping. You can see the yard games area kind of there in the background. This is looking, I guess, northwest, again, from Traceway. Now you start to see the playground a little bit better. You really see how that pedestrian spine could serve as, again, kind of another additional overflow event space as well. So this is actually looking from the back of the slide. This is our first look south. And we'll get to this, but you can see the large footprint community center in the background as well. But here you kind of see that open patio area. again, I think as we were planning this, we're thinking about, you know, obviously public space for folks to picnic and gather, but potentially maybe a concession area as well, where again, folks could get a coffee or a pastry and, you know, read the paper, whatever it might be, watch their kids as they're playing on the playground. So that's some images there. And now I think you get your first good view of our bike pump track. Again, this is looking south, but hopefully that gives you a sense of kind of what that bike piece could look like. Now we are kind of debating exactly what kind of biking feature could go here, but at this point we are thinking, you know, something like a pump track. And then you get a real good sense of the scale of the playground. Again, don't get hung up on what's in the playground at this point. This is just a kind of a mock-up. As we get into that next design phase, we'll really hammer out, based on neighborhood feedback, you know, what should be in that playground area.
Question about the bike track thing.
Sure.
You know, logically, you would want to make it a challenging, fun, exciting thing. But would that affect insurance rates for the city because it's a hazard?
Yeah. So, and this is a good question for our parks director, and our attorney. But I believe as a city we have it's like a general recreational indemnification, meaning, you know, if the public uses our facilities, it's at their own risk. You know, this really isn't that much different than, you know, a playground. But yeah, that's something we can look into. I know there are other cities in the area that are exploring these concepts as it relates to pump tracks. So yeah, we'll check in with them and make sure we're, you know, up to speed on that. But I don't anticipate any additional, you know, liabilities or cost burdens on the city for that type of use.
Just because of that, okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about the, and I think I can see it in the background there, but the crosswalk that goes from the north side to the south side, is that going to be at grade, and what kind of, that traceway is going to become a pretty heavily used road.
Yep.
Are they going to try to go with flashers, or are they going to try to put a bridge there, or what?
Yeah, good question. And again, those are things that we've talked about that will flesh out in a phase 2 design. But yeah, I think in general discussions with our PD and our consultant, you know, we've talked about maybe a raised crossing, flashing lights. But yeah, something to make it very prominent that this is a highly used pedestrian crossing. So yeah,
wheelchairs will be coming across too.
Exactly. Yep. So we'll be sure to account for that in our next design phase. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Okay. Yeah. Feel free to stop me as I'm moving along. So this is looking southeast. Maybe not quite as exciting, but you see kind of the parking lot. I think you get a good sense of the scope and scale of that covered area. You see, you know, as we have it mocked up here, you've got an opportunity to have half of it be, you know, rec use at a certain point, and then the other half is kind of serving as an event space. So again, a very versatile, versatile space. This is kind of an aerial, top down. So again, we're looking north. The belt line's kind of at the top of your screen. This is kind of looking at our community center, which we'll talk about next. And then that pedestrian spine that kind of connects north and south. This is just kind of a lot of stuff that, you know, kind of some technical stuff that staff will have to be conscious of. But I think the real take home here is, for this site to be successful, I think at least initially, we as staff feel like it needs to have some management, you know, basically people there, city staff there at certain times a day. I think we have that covered with some of our current capacity. But yeah, you know, just maybe some folks there to help, you know, if we have rentals, to do that. But also to serve as kind of like a resource or an information contact point. So again, we envision maybe a little jump desk where we have some city staff there during certain hours, and they can, you know, provide information or resources to neighborhood residents as needed. But that will be an additional cost for this site. I think, but to potentially offset that, we are looking at some potential revenues. So again, if we are able to get a food and drink concession in there, that could potentially bring some revenues to our city. And I do want to point out with this phase one, and Dorothy can speak to this as well, but we do have money in hand right now to do this. Folks might be familiar with what we call our Parkland dedication fund. So as the city grows and develops, we do get money from developers to enhance our park system. So sometimes they give us land, and if they can't give us land, they give us monies in lieu of land. So that account has a couple $1 million in it right now. And we are going to be using a portion of that to cover, I think, probably 100% of these phase one costs. So I just want to point out that these aren't, new dollars. These are dollars that have been there that we're finally finding a really good use to put them towards. And to that point, I think in terms of staff doing our due diligence, even though we do have city funds to do the phase one, we will be seeking out some grant sources that I think we will be very competitive for. And obviously, if we get those funds, we can put some of that money back into the city coffers. So that's something we're looking at. And then with that, I'll turn to kind of the phase two. Again, this is the large footprint neighborhood center. So again, south side of Traceway, existing parking, new parking, pedestrian spine, and community center. One issue I do want to point out as we talk about this, again, I keep saying this is a concept, and it is. I think one thing we could potentially see in our next phase of design is movement of the community center, maybe a little bit to the east or to the west. And essentially this new parking lot would go away, and then we could use this existing parking lot. I think the current concept is pretty heavy on parking. And obviously as planners, parking is good, but we also want to think about people walking and biking to the site as well. And I think this current lot over here could certainly serve the capacity of car users that would come to this site. So those are just things we're thinking about and would potentially address in a phase two design. But this is, speaking of that point, this is an image of the currently proposed new parking lot, looking east towards that community center. And then again, that you really see the scope and the scale of that pedestrian spine as well. This is looking southeast, so you got Traceway Drive, pedestrian spine, 2-story community center type building. This is looking east, again, kind of top down. You see all the northern pieces we talked about, and then our community center as well. Now, I think what's important here, and probably to the interest of this group, is, when we talk about the north side, I think we're really talking about kind of a rec-focused area, obviously with some elements that address senior rec and social needs. As we move south, I think we're really talking about kind of a social service, resource-based facility. I mean, think about our community center at City Hall, but maybe, tweaked a little bit, and we'll talk about what those tweaks look like. But I think that's where we're really thinking about, areas for classrooms, for meeting rooms, whatever city staff wants to be located up there, we would welcome that. I think we're thinking about, Parks Department, rec. If there's a senior center interest, certainly we'd love to discuss that. Again, whatever city staff thinks it makes sense to be up there, I think we're open to those discussions. And then I think the third piece of the puzzle here, so we have kind of the community spaces, the city spaces, and the third piece would be this idea of partner spaces. So we have a lot of nonprofit partners that are working in these neighborhoods. And as a result of our initiative, we've been able to build partnerships and communication lines with those organizations. I think we are also envisioning rentable, leasable space for those organizations to potentially house their neighborhood operations, in this facility if they so choose. So to that point, again, a lot going on with this facility, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of issues yet to be figured out. But I think that's where in the next couple of years, if our budgets remain as they're currently proposed, we would undertake what we're calling a operational management analysis of that south side community center type building and figure out, what makes the most sense, excuse me, from a city perspective in terms of management and operations. Is it city management, or is it potentially a third-party management? And, you know, we'll look at all the costs related to that and figure out what makes the most sense from a city resource perspective. And then again, to offset whatever costs might come along with management and operation, obviously there will be annual costs to that type of facility. We are looking at this idea of revenues from, again, some potential lease space to again, those private groups, but also just like the community center, we have public rentable spaces. You know, that could be a revenue stream as well. Now, this item is a little bit more kind of ambiguous in terms of where funding would come from. We don't have the money in hand at this point. I think there is plans in, you know, 10-year budgets to allocate money towards this facility. But I think as city staff, we really want to, you know, pound the pavement here and find other outside sources that could potentially support this type of construction. So, you know, a few sources we have in mind, and I think over the next year plus, we'll try to identify some additional outside funding sources as well. And then I just want to point out, probably not of real keen interest to this group, but there are some other issues that we'll have to work through with some private landowners if we want to push this south side concept. We are currently planning on some private lands, and we're very thankful for the private landowner to allow us to do that. But if we were to proceed with the general concept on the south side, the city would need to acquire some additional private land. And I think there's a lot of different options and a lot of doors are open at this point in terms of us getting that property. But I just want to point that out as a future issue that we'll have to work on as well. So that kind of wraps up my spiel. I think in terms of next steps, as I mentioned, we will seek out a consultant in the next couple months to really help us flesh out those design specifics of that phase one. And really to get to those specifics, we will continue the engagement process. So we'll talk with city staff, we'll talk with the neighborhood. You know, if senior center folks want to be engaged on that phase one next step design, certainly we'd love to have you. But that's really kind of, you know, what it looks like in terms of next steps. So with that, I'm done. I thank you for your time and can certainly address any questions or comments the group might have.
I have a couple of conceptual comments or observations. First of all, I was really glad to hear when you said the community center might be moved so that you could use an existing parking lot rather than adding more. Because when I looked at this, the PowerPoint presentation, one of my first reactions was, wow, there's a lot of concrete. Yep. A lot of, which is, a lot of urban design is focused on the care and feeding of the automobile. And so I was glad to hear you were thinking about some alternatives.
Yeah, if I could just interject there and tell you why we kind of started with that concept. So again, when I talked about the private land, this is actually the private land here, kind of generally speaking. And then this is actually private land as well. And as of now, we have an agreement to allow our golf course users to use this parking lot. But we didn't want to be presumptuous about that landowner allowing us to use his parking lot for the hub as well. As a concept evolved and as that landowner was engaged with the design, he saw the value of allowing us to use this lot and getting rid of this lot. So yeah, I think in a next phase design, you'll probably see this new parking lot going away. Yeah.
Okay, and then the bigger conceptual question, and I don't have an answer and you might not either, but if I think of McKee Farms Park and there's a lot of utilization of that park, are we, first of all, competing with it, or are we kind of segregating these neighborhoods? Are they going to start using this one, whereas people who are in the Seminole neighborhood's going to use McKee Farms Park, which would kind of defeat the purpose of community that you talked about as a primary motive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I understand what you're getting at, but I mean, I guess, you know, my point would be this neighborhood literally has no park space. I mean, literally. So that, you know, this this area that I showed you. There, so this whole area, literally no park space. And I don't have the scale on here, but you know, a goal of our city is to have at a minimum, like very tiny neighborhood parks within I think a quarter mile of people. So these folks, you know, if they want to recreate, they have to go, and I realize there's some Madison parks nearby, but I think as planners, we really need to get some usable park space into that neighborhood. You know, I talked earlier about this idea of getting other residents of our community into the neighborhood. I think that's a goal. You know, I don't think it competes with McKee Farms Park. I think they serve different purposes and different users. And I think what's going to happen is good planning also entails density. To your earlier point about trying to maybe not depend on automobiles 100%. So as we continue to densify our city, there will be continued demand for park spaces of this magnitude. So I think they're actually complements, you know, McKee and the hub. You know, I think to that point, we are really thinking about uses in the hub that are new. You know, maybe there will be some replication with a playground, but playgrounds are so universal that I think, you know, if we have a similar type playground at the hub and at McKee, I still think they'll both be highly used. So.
And in your comment that people attract people, so if there are some different uses, you will get people from beyond the neighborhood there too, which is part of my
Exactly.
comment is
Exactly.
getting more desegregation, if you will, of
Exactly.
the different neighborhoods. Okay.
And another quick point there, you know, as a planner and my background is kind of in parks and open space, you know, to me, it's about getting people into our parks. And if I hear cries of our parks are overused, and I have heard that McKee is overused, you know, I understand that what people are saying, but as a planner, I don't think that's wholly negative. I mean, we want to hear that, and certainly we want to make sure that
Right.
people aren't waiting for uses or getting harassed. But I mean, that's a good thing. And I think the more people we get into our parks, the better our park system is. So.
A question here, can I interrupt on Linda?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Talking about McKee Park, one of the uses there that is very heavy is people walking on the trails there, and I don't remember seeing in the hub area any kind of walking trails. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, so good point. I guess one thing to think about there is we're not talking a lot of acreage. It's a pretty small footprint. I think it's like an acre and a half on the,
okay.
But it's like an acre and a half on the north side, and you know, like maybe an acre on the south, something like that. And obviously, you know, I think this park, you know, I'll call this an active site. You know, I think sometimes with more of our passive conservancy parks that are larger, we're able to do that, those walking circuits or those trails. But one thing we have thought about, and again, I didn't focus on it today, but you know, I talked about the golf course improvements. You know, one thing we have thought about, and I realize there's a lot of issues, but we have thought about, is there a way to maybe integrate some kind of walking circuit around the golf course? And obviously, you know, we got to be conscious of flying golf balls and those sorts of things, but that's something we're thinking about. I mean, we have thought about your point, and maybe how do we, and especially, you know, with the senior housing going in there, yeah, we're thinking about maybe a way to integrate some of that senior rec, you know, more passive kind of rec elements as well. So something we are thinking about. I can't promise that we can make it happen here, but we have talked about it.
Okay.
And I think to that point, Jim, I was thinking the same thing, but as Linda pointed out, you know, each park kind of offers unique experiences, and so that would hopefully not attract everybody to one park. So, you know, McKee has a splash pad, and I was thinking about that, Jim, how much our folks use the walking path at McKee, and how we can maybe look at, you know, adding certain things to that walking park that will be attractive for not just older adults, but everybody, and make that a destination for that. And so you do have different options, you know, because maybe, you want to take a walk in a really nice passive park that's quiet versus a really, really active, energetic area. So, but I was thinking the same thing about walking past too.
Wade, I have a question. I'm not able to tell from the schematic the relative size of the hub and the building, the concession stand on the north side of Traceway. And maybe if you could compare them to something that we're familiar with, like the City Hall building or the library or whatever, to get some idea of how much room there will be for these various services?
Yeah, so don't quote me on this, but because I get confused sometimes, so we will flesh this out. So on the legend on this slide, I'm trying to get my cursor visible here. So just start with a shelter. That's this building here with kind of some hardcore area. We have 4,400 square feet. So that, I believe, so that includes both the covered area and the patio area. I believe our McKee Farm shelter, I believe this shelter would be similar to the McKee Farms Park shelter in terms of size. Obviously, the paved area, the patio area wouldn't be quite as big. We don't have as much room. But I think if you think about McKee shelter with that paved area, I think that's a good comparable. Now the covered rec social area is 14,500 square feet. So again, that's big enough. I mean, again, think about a full-size basketball court. Well, you can kind of see it here on the image. So a full-size basketball court on one half, and I believe these are pickleball courts mocked up. So the other half could have like 4 full-size pickleball courts. So again, a pretty big footprint there. Now moving south to the community center. So we're talking large. We're talking 23,000 square feet. Now I believe I have this number somewhere. I think I can recite them. I believe this would be about twice the size of the existing community center at City Hall. But now keep in mind that we're talking about leasable space as well. So I think that's the reason why we scaled it so big. Again, rentable space for organizations. Again, as we move towards a more refined design of this concept, the footprint of that could change based on what we're hearing as we get into that next phase of design. But again, the reason we scaled it so big is because of the 3 things I mentioned, community spaces, city personnel spaces, and then nonprofit partner spaces. So
how many floors?
At this point, we're talking 2.
And so those community spaces that might become available, that would be part of the second phase.
Yeah, so
we would interview people to see if they would prefer spaces for party rooms versus maybe a small theater or something like that. Is that the plan?
I mean, I think, so you're talking about like kind of the community, like the neighborhood or community rooms or spaces. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, in that 23,000 square feet.
Yeah, so again, this is kind of just the 30,000 foot engagement. We heard, the things that people want. Yeah, to your point, as we get to that design 2 phase, we will, reconnect with the neighborhood and really figure out, okay, we've got a footprint of, let's say 18,000 square feet. Neighborhood stakeholders help us figure out what goes in the building and where. So yeah, we will do all that work as we, as we get the go ahead to move on this project. Yep.
And the neighborhood is all of Fitchburg?
Well, I think initially we'll probably start. I mean, these will all be public meetings, but I think our initial audience will be the neighborhood, and then I think we'll kind of grow it out and see what the community is interested in. But to your point, that is a really good point. I think if this truly becomes a community center too, we need to be real conscious of the entirety of the community. Yep.
Does your neighborhood include the senior Waterford organization?
The Highline?
So this is the boundary of our neighbor, not to say we can't go out of this to engage with folks. But I guess I'm not familiar with,
It's on Caddis Bend. You know where the park is on Caddis Bend,
okay.
right
Okay,
next
so that
to
Across from Great Dane and that area.
So yeah, I guess, so that's what is that, an association, or what is it? What is it?
no, it's
Assisted living.
senior housing.
Oh, assisted living.
Assisted living.
Yeah, I don't think we've connected with them specifically, but yeah, certainly we can connect with them.
They back up right next to the golf course.
Okay. It was Waterford, Waterford?
It's called Waterford, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and part of the issue here too, and obviously the reason we're on Zoom here today is, we're all in a new environment socially. And to be frank, this neighborhood was difficult to engage with anyways, just because it's a different, city staff, we've had traditionally had issues with engaging with this neighborhood in a productive manner. To that point, we have recently been able to hire 2 neighborhood residents. We call them neighborhood navigators. They're part-time city staff, 2 women, they both speak Spanish, and we had them about 1.5 years, and they were a huge, huge part of us connecting with the neighborhood on this project. And I think if we didn't have them, our neighborhood engagement would have not been great. So, I think we envision really heavily relying on them again as we continue to engage with the neighborhood. We have built, as I mentioned, relationships with partners in the neighborhood. The Leopold community, the elementary school up there has been great. They actually are what's called a community school. So they try to really serve the community and connect with the community. We've really connected with them, and I think they're going to be vital. They've been vital in this first engagement phase, and will be vital as we continue to engage. But kind of where I'm going with all this is, I think as we think about future engagement, at least for the foreseeable future, public meetings will be very difficult. So we're going to have to continue to think creatively about how to engage with that neighborhood. So certainly as this group has ideas about stakeholders to connect with, I'd also be interested in ways to connect with them, so, and then we don't have to figure this out now, but I think that's something I'm looking for thoughts on, as well as we continue to engage with stakeholders.
Okay.
Wade, will there be flexibility with regard to the configuration within the buildings for the use of the space? In light of this pandemic we're in, we don't know when it's going to be over and what things are going to be like when it's over. So
Yeah.
Are we going to be able are you going to be able to make some changes there on the run?
Yeah, I think, so let's just start with phase 1. I think, here we're talking, we're really talking about the shelter as an indoor space. And I think that'll be.
And across the street.
Yeah, so yeah, let me just focus on this one first. I think here we're talking, a generally traditional park shelter, but obviously with some enhanced elements. So I think we could, so there could be some flexible, flex walls or whatever you want to call them, things that we can do to reorientate spaces. Yeah, to your broader point on the south side, yeah, and actually my brother-in-law, he runs a construction management company, and they actually build schools up in the Fox Valley. And, he's been telling me that their whole design model has changed, with the pandemic. So I think, yeah, as we continue to evolve with this pandemic, and we continue to evolve with construction, that will be front and center in our mind, is how do we create a facility that addresses current issues related to pandemics, but if we get over this hurdle someday, also allows us to get back to that normal of how we do good space planning and those sorts of things. So I think, yes, we are conscious of that as well.
As well as remaining flexible for renting needs.
Yep. Again, those will all come in the next step of design, but good points and things that we're thinking of. I guess to that point as well, and I think I was meaning to touch on it earlier, but part of our engagement too was not just with neighborhood, but also with these organizations. And just anecdotally, I kind of posed the question to a lot of different really quality organizations that are working in this neighborhood. If the city did have this type of space that you're seeing in front of you, and we did have opportunities for you to lease and have a permanent presence in a facility, would you be interested? And I got a lot of really, really positive responses. So again, I think if we do proceed with this type of model, we will get people from the get-go, really reputable, solid organizations that want to be part of this concept. So
Can you give us an example of some of those that you were?
I'd rather not. Just for their interest, I'd rather not specifically identify them. But I think they're, let's say, minority workforce development organizations, other governmental organizations that are in this line of work. Who else have I talked to? Yeah, I think just across the board, education, youth recreation, so yeah, minority workforce development, government organizations. So yeah.
Okay.
All not-for-profit?
Excuse me?
Are they all not-for-profit, or do you anticipate some for-profit type firms?
At this point, I think the folks that are working in these neighborhoods are generally nonprofit. I'm sure there's maybe some profit models, but at this point, I would say it's been nonprofit. But again, stable organizations that are willing to pay, a market rental rate.
Okay. So anybody else have more questions for Wade?
Well, if there's no questions, I just wanted to thank Wade. I know he's been working on this for such a long time, and the wheels of government do move slowly, but I appreciate that he hasn't asked for my input, my staff's input along the way, and it's exciting to see it get to this point. I think there's no doubt that the senior center, we would like representation, as these stakeholder committees are formed and move forward. I appreciate his forethought. He's very community minded, and I think we as a staff and a community of seniors are very community minded. So I'm excited about these opportunities. And I do think, things have shifted so much when we serve older adults. It's not like it was 25 years ago. We have so many active older adults. And so I really look at, as we move forward in this design in the next 10 years, that we're looking at spaces of community centers. It's no longer just like senior space, kids space, that kind of stuff, that we're really utilizing our resources to serve the whole community. Because 30-year-olds are playing pickleball. I think teens should play pickleball, and older adults are playing pickleball. Same with basketball, same with classrooms. So I want to move away a little bit from that stereotype of frail senior center versus looking at a community center for all, social services for all. We've talked about, for a couple of years, this visiting nurse and having, a wellness center for all. So, as we move forward, I think a lot of the utilization from older adults is the same utilization from teens and kids and all ages. And so, some of it's selfish because I want to move away from that stereotype of, oh, the seniors need this. Well, you know what? People need this. The community needs this. And so I think this bigger collaboration of just what's best for the community. Obviously, that's, a lower income area. That's why it's been identified. There are a lot of social service resources that we're connected with. I think Wade's speaking to the Hispanic population. We have tried really hard to work with Dane County, the cultural diversity staff that Dane County provides, and we've made some headway. And so we can, I can pull them in maybe as a stakeholder to represent, older adults too. But I think this is a really exciting opportunity. But again, I think I look at this more as, this is a community center for all, a social services for all, and that we work together to pull these resources as it moves forward.
I want to say amen to that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, that's a great point. And I think as planners, and I touched on it in earlier slides, but really we're about trying to create, and people can take this from a lot of different ways, but truly integrated neighborhoods. And I don't just
Right.
mean integration by the color of your skin. I mean integration by income levels. I mean integration by worldviews. I mean,
Generations.
yes. And I think this, and not to get on my soapbox, but the root cause of a lot of our social issues today is the lack of us being integrated as a community and as a society. So,
Right.
at this point in time, this neighborhood, I don't think is there. But I think what you're seeing happening on the corridor is moving us in that direction. I think the hub is another example of that. And I think the real challenge with the city will be, as that corridor evolves, to make sure that everyone that wants to be in that neighborhood can continue to be in that neighborhood. And I think that's something we're conscious of. But yeah, I think we're all moving towards, the things that Jill's talked about. And as a planner, I mean, that's exciting. And I think we're doing good things up there, and we'll continue to do good things. So.
Me too. Thanks, Wade, for all your work.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you for the time. And yeah, if there's any other, I'll continue to stay in touch with Jill. And if the group wants me to come back at any point for an update, I would be happy to do so. So.
Thank you, Wade.
Okay,
Thanks.
very good. Well, it took more than 15 minutes, but it was really a good presentation. I enjoyed that.
No,
I'm
that's
excited
good.
about it.
I am too. It's long overdue, and it's fun to see the focus being more on community now versus,
Right.
just this and that. So it's good. It's a really exciting time. So yeah.
Okay. Well, our next agenda item is Senior Center Friends. I think Judith is, there she is, okay. Judith, you're on.
I think I told you last time that we had made some new committees for the Fitchburg Senior Friends. One was the Financial Committee, but we've also grew out of that the Advocacy Committee. And that's been very active recently. And part of it has to do with the hub. Marcia Grishkovich read a statement at the October 13th City Council meeting, pointing out that the Fitchburg Senior Center Friends, since 2008, have provided $250,000 in support of the Fitchburg Senior Center, and that included $150,000 when it came to the expense and expansion and remodeling of the Fitchburg Senior Center in 2011. And so we wanted to tell the council that we would like to support the proposed hub project and encourage planning for it to serve as a satellite for the Fitchburg Senior Center. So we didn't give a dollar amount, but we're willing to raise funds for it. It looks like phase one is already has the money for most of the amenities in phase one, but phase two, when they build the community center, we could provide support for that. And then on November 10th, Marcia again spoke to the council to support an amendment to reinstate cable to the city hall and senior center and fire stations. And a number of the friends also wrote to their alders, supporting that amendment. And as I think the amendment was approved to continue cable to the senior center. We paid for veterans meals for November 11th celebration of veterans. We've also started to think in terms of if we're going to raise money. We realized that people in the community don't know who the friends are and what we do. And so if we're going to do fundraising, we decided maybe we needed a brochure that could be used as an enclosure for any requests for funds or for passing out. And so we're meeting to develop a brochure for the Fitchburg Senior Snyder Friends. I think that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for Judith? Okay, Don, you're on. Area Agency on Aging.
Well, I don't think we've met since we last met. I looked back at my prep for this. I looked back at my calendar, and I don't have it on there, so I don't think we met. I think we.
Okay. Well, in these times right now, that's understandable, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, Jill?
Okay.
Director's report.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody again, because the advocacy, I think, did work, and I'm really happy to see the cable was reinstated. It kind of got slipped out of there without us really knowing until I went to Finance Committee and saw that they had taken it out of the budget. So I was not prepared to see that. And so I did give an opportunity. There was a few I rewatched the council meeting, and I think Gabriella's comments about, I had no idea what the senior center did with that, so it always gives us an opportunity to educate. So it was a good thing. And I was happy to see all the council people did vote in support. And I know several of you, wrote in support, and then thanked Marcia for her advocacy and speaking. And the Friends group also spoke in support of the teen center. And I think it just shows that, again, my comments about more community-minded sort of collaborations is a great thing. The senior center is not a teen center, but that is space that we can utilize. And I can honestly say 20 years ago, I wanted my own center. I don't want to say my own, but I thought it should all be kind of separate. And I don't think that anymore. I think it's not financially smart to have separate buildings for separate things, and then, having all of this overlap about different programming opportunities that everybody can do, and intergenerational programs, and using the same space, even the same staff. I mean, you don't have to be an expert you can offer programs for all. That's what I'm saying, I guess. And so again, as we move forward, I know, maybe I'm pushing myself out of a job eventually, but, I do see some crossover in how we offer rec programs and then social services. And I see these two tiers. And again, it's rec for all, and it's social services for all. It's a community center for all. So anyway, I'm excited about that project. So, all right, I'm just going to give a highlight of programs. Like Judith said, we had our Vets Day drive-by meals that were paid for by the Friends yesterday. They paid for 65 meals, and that was for veterans and significant others, if you still had a significant other. And so we're so grateful for the Friends for doing that. And it was a beautiful day, and it was fun to see the folks again drive up. And we did deliver about 30 of those meals, maybe not quite, maybe 25, to more homebound veterans. And so we had volunteers come out and do that. We were also able to collaborate with Eagle School, like we have over the last, 10 or so years, where generally when the program is here, they come and they sing songs. They create posters based on the poem in Flanders Field, and they read the poem. And so this year they still did the posters that we displayed outside at the drive up, and they did do a video of them reading in Flanders Field. So I'd encourage you to go to our Facebook page and take a look at that. And hopefully we're able to embed it on our website, but it is on our Senior Center Facebook page. And it's just really nice to see the kids being involved in Veterans Day, and it's a really educational opportunity for them. So I was happy we could continue that collaboration. We're working on a December drive-by. We want to do something more service oriented. So we're thinking of something called like a cookie exchange, but you get a cookie and then you bring something for the food pantry. So exchange it for, a non-perishable food item, or something for the essentials pantry. And we're going to reach out to Badger Prairie. They always put in a list out of what they're really short on. And Allied Drive at the Boys and Girls Club, they still have their food pantry going on. So then we'll just split the donations between them. So we're hoping to do that early December with the help of Friends. They kind of know that I might be asking. Other programs, the Zoom classes are going great. We just implemented a paid aerobics class, and I think we had 7 or 8 sign up for that. We're doing paid yoga classes, so generating just a teeny bit of revenue with that stuff because we do have to pay those instructors. You pay your money and then you get the Zoom link, so it's really seamless. Otherwise, all the other classes that we're doing online are free, like Jim's the men's group. People are Zooming in. Like I said, the book club has a couple meetings a month, caregiver support, ukulele meets twice a month. And let's see, we have aging mastery going on, which we're working with the UW School of Medicine and Public Health, and they're facilitating that. And hoping to add more, I really want to focus on more educational Zoom programs where we bring a presenter in and you can again register and we send you the Zoom link. Because you can go out there and you can sign up for all kind of daddy talks and all kind of educational things, but I want it to just be our stuff. So we find a speaker and then people can get the link for that. We're doing, we had a person donate thousands and thousands of dollars of stamping materials. They must have been a Stamp It Up whatever they are, person that does that. And you make the cards, and I'm talking a lot of product. And so we are making little bags with a couple holiday stamps and some cardstock and some different stickers. Or if you're into making cards, you can only imagine our whole Swan Creek room is full of product. And so we're going to offer that to people to come up, like a no contact pickup, and get a little bag, and you can make your own greeting cards for the holidays. And then Susie, our office manager, is going to go down to the apartments, and the apartment managers are signing like 5 people up at a time, and she's going to bring all the supplies down there and offer it to people to make cards for the holidays too. So we're able to use those resources that someone very nicely donated to the senior center. So, with the recent order by the governor to, obviously it's not a mandate, but it is a strong recommendation. About a month ago or more, we started bringing a few folks back for lunch. Those people that we really were worried about, who were really socially isolated. They were regular lunch people daily, and then, we hadn't seen them for 8 months. So we sort of worked with our social workers to pick out those that we thought were most vulnerable and to invite them back for lunch. And it's been so wonderful. And we've been getting between 3 and 5 for lunch every day. And some of them do use the county bus to come over. A couple of them drive. It's been great. We've got the dining room set up with tables, that everybody can socially distance, and it seems very safe. But we had a meeting yesterday, and I just feel like we need to stop for a while, just because the numbers are so high and people are coming on the bus, and just to reduce the risk, I guess. It saddens me because for some of these, we were the only people they're seeing. And so we're going to discontinue in-house lunches, at least for the time being. And the only in-house program we're going to continue is foot care, which is only twice a month. And we're able to really space out those appointments and see how that goes. So anyway, I felt like we were really getting into a nice groove. We had different people coming every day, but we are going to stop that for now and put most of those people back on home delivered meals. So moving forward, like I said, we're going to discontinue the meals. That will put us back up to about 55 home delivered meals every day. We're still not delivering on Wednesdays. Again, I know I shared with you, we're using 6 different drivers a day because the routes are so big and they take so long. And it's been really hard to fill these routes. Generally every day, at least several times a week, staff is delivering along with volunteers because, we're moving into flu season. People are getting sick. People don't want to come in. We lost a few of our younger volunteers that went back to virtual online school. And so staff is not only packing up the food every day, we're also delivering meals. I know Susie's heading out in another half an hour because somebody called in sick. So anyway, it's going fine, but I think we're going to keep Wednesdays as a no meal day for the time being. It helps us with the drive-bys. We can get stuff done in the office that day. And 6 more drivers is a hard task to fill right now, especially during this time. We have developed an emergency plan in the event that somebody does get COVID here, or we're all exposed, or, maybe it's just the flu and we need to shut down. The county has delivered emergency meals, which are kind of like, just add water. They're not the most delicious meals, but they are something that home delivered meal clients can use in an emergency. And they would give a client, let's see, I think it's enough for 2 weeks. So if indeed the caterer, if something went through Consolidated and everybody there got COVID and they needed to shut down, our home delivered meal clients would have food to eat. And then the Friends have always provided emergency meals as well, which were used mostly for snow days, which, we will still get. And because we are delivering meals, there will be moments, if that snow is bad, we will cancel the meal program because we're not going to send drivers out in the snow. Luckily, we can still follow Oregon school district school closing, even though they're virtual, because their admin offices are still open. So they'll make that decision to close those admin offices, and then we'll know that's our decision to cancel meals. And certainly we can do that on our own too, if we feel like the roads are just too risky to send out meal drivers. So we will be, we feel assured that our meal participants will have food, whether it's COVID, the flu, weather related, if we have to close down the meal site.
Bill?
Yeah.
Is there any thinking ahead, I guess, in the process as far as providing these temporary meals now so that they have them when they need them?
Yeah, we just, Eric, our social work intern, he was kind enough to deliver them all. And they're kind of heavy boxes, and he's a big, strong guy. So he actually was out all this week delivering the stable shelf meals. And we'll be getting another round of those, as well as the ones for the winter months. So yeah, they've got their first emergency kit out right now, and we'll be sending out more probably in December. And I think the county is coming forward with some funding to do another round of emergency meals as well. So that's kind of nice. Case management, as I alluded to, people are very isolated. And unfortunately, we had our second suicide attempt of a client, and it was not successful, thank goodness. But it just reiterates that this is real, and the effects and the impact of social isolation is hard. And so we take it really seriously. It's just a difficult time. So we're trying to reach out to as many people as we can. But luckily, I am going to serve or be a part of a committee, statewide committee, that is addressing social isolation, because we always knew that it was a problem, but the pandemic has really brought it to the forefront, and it's capturing the attention of more state people. And I think that, if we can say anything good comes of the pandemic, it's lending exposure to the importance of connection and people, and how people need that, and how it impacts the healthcare system and first responders and that sort of thing. So I'll be attending my first meeting on Friday about that. I think our caseworkers Amy and Sarah are busy. We're getting at least 2, if not more, new referrals every single month. We're starting to notice the complexity of these cases increase. Certainly isolation, food insecurity, we're getting more calls about that. Mental illness, I think we're seeing more and more of that because of the isolation. There's a lot of people that have underlying mental illness issues, but it's really bubbling these issues to the top right now. So they're keeping very busy with that. We're still working with the Edgewood student nurses, which has been great. We've got, I think, 8 of them or 7 right now that are connected with some clients, and they're helping with some televisits. And also too, just that contact, that social outreach. And I mentioned our student intern, Eric, social work intern, has been great, and we have assigned him his own caseload right now. So it gives us an extra person to be able to help people. And we are still working, like I said, with the medical students, talk about overload. So we took on the Edgewood students, we took on the UW social work intern, and then I took on a partnership with the School of Medicine and Public Health. Those students are doing the virtual age mastery. But next semester, we're going to work with the students to do health-related Zoom presentations and some other things too. So these are really nice resources that we've been able to pull in and be creative with during these times. Let's see, I'm gonna move over to senior housing. The luxury apartments, they're called Quarry Ridge. They had a groundbreaking. They're on Verona. I have this, it's a resort lifestyle community. It's more lavish. They call it affordable lavish living. Independent living. Anyway, they broke ground, over on Verona or Fitchburg, Dorothy Road. I'm looking for their address. Oh, there it is, Verona Road. So kind of behind the Target. So they did break ground on Thursday. I connected with a staff person from there. And so we'll just be in touch with them. I assume it won't be done until next spring or so. I'm not sure how many apartments it is yet. But it's kind of like just a nicer resort style community, they call it. There is some talk about a memory care / assisted living facility project being considered up on Fish Hatchery and Nobel Drive, which is sort of not too far from where there was a lot of controversy about that other senior apartment building going due to the traffic of Fish Hatchery, right kind of at the top of the hill, heading south on Fish Hatchery. So I'm not sure where this is at. I just know that there's some talk about that, and maybe Dorothy can comment too. And then there still is some interest from a company to do more of a continuum of care facility over in Uptown, which is, you move in independently and then you have the graduated levels of care as you get older and need more services. So it's really nice to see that more housing is coming to Fitchburg. I think the Highline's doing great. I think we have maybe 8 to 10 people on home delivered meals right now up there. Maybe not quite, but the social workers are spending some time up there too. So anyway, again, it's nice to see we're going to have more options for older adults either to age in place here in Fitchburg or have some housing available. So let me see. That is my report. That's it. Any questions? Oh, Ruth, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Who is the developer for Quarry Apartments?
Dorothy, do you know?
I don't know the developer. I've got, Julie is new development marketer.
Right, that's who I contacted. I can find out, Ruth.
How many units?
Yeah, I don't know. We were supposed to connect, and she showed up. I wasn't here, so she just left her information. So I'll get more information for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
I went to the groundbreaking, but I do not know what the actual unit count was.
Yeah.
So it's up to 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And it's an all-inclusive, and you better have a whole bunch of money if you want to live there.
So there's no Section 42 tied to it.
No, there's
No.
there's nothing that's going to make it anywhere near within the affordable range.
Okay, so it's all market rate.
It's all market rate, and it does go from studios to 3 bedrooms. It's going to have a 150 seat theater. You can have a pet.
Wow.
Concierge and valet parking services, a wellness and a fitness center, paid utilities, meals, weekly housekeeping. I'm moving in. Sounds wonderful.
Just to know it's going to be like $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Oh, I would think if not more. Yeah.
Well, when you say all-inclusive, does that mean there's a kitchen and they're going to serve the meals too?
You have a dining room? Yeah. Or then
And that's usually 5 to 6 a month.
that's what I'm thinking, Dorothy. it's going to be pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Jill,
beautiful. Yeah.
I forgot to ask when Wade did his presentation, has there been any discussion about a kitchen in the community center there?
I think, I think that those preliminary designs are just to give you a visual. I don't think that they've honed in on a lot of that stuff yet.
Oh, okay.
But like I said, I really, Wade's been great. He has involved me all along, but I think on a larger scale, we really need to be at the table. And I'm really proud of the Friends. They really have taken a strong interest in this. And because I think it should be community driven and that, you guys should be at the table. It can't just be me. But I really do, I feel really strongly about, it's not, I don't want it, oh, well, what do the seniors need? I really want to move away from that because it's what does the community need? Because what you guys need is the same as a lot of other ages. And I think it continues to kind of keep that stereotype of, oh, well, but don't forget about the seniors. Well, let's just not say that stuff anymore. You guys, we're all adults here, and maybe I'm a little more sensitive because, I'm over 50 now and I'm kind of lumped into my own senior group, and because there's, a lot of people in their 80s that are healthier than me and still jogging. And so, let's just look at what's best for the community and use these awesome resources. And I think, and maybe it's because our department here, we've always been forward thinking, when I think about, we started concerts at McKee. We've done lots of big community things. We're always socially minded. I want to have I've been trying to get the city to hire a nurse for the whole community forever, because I think that there's just so many great things we can do together. And it's been a little shift for me, like I said, 20 years ago, I was all about the senior center. And now I'm more like, the aging population is way healthier and more active than what it was when I started here 25 years ago. So
We
so
were
it's
all
exciting.
in denial at 50.
Correct. Well, me too, Ruth. So anyway.
It's also important to keep in mind that many of your, I'm not saying this right, financing, especially when it's government related, whether it be county or state or whatever, they do have a specific definition.
Yeah.
Of older adults and
Yeah.
seniors. And we want to still be a part of that. So
Right.
you have to keep that in mind as well.
But I think that a lot of that funding relates to social services. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So for the meals, for the transportation, for case management, for senior housing, you know what I mean? But a lot of the other stuff really just kind of runs the gamut.
Sure.
And so, I don't want, a social service office, maybe it is a shared office that we have case managers, that are obviously funded partially by the county that help older adults, but there's a lot of older adults that need employment. There's a lot of benefits that, we could share an office with joining forces for families that are helping kids. And, there's just a lot of things we could collaborate more on as this project moves forward. So I'm happy that, this is just the beginning of us having a voice at the table. And I think that we can continue to make sure that we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see in bringing activities up to the hub, say, is that where the senior center and city hall is now is very isolated from the general community. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've been wishing for all year is, because we got a lot of smart grandparents around, okay? And we have a lot of kids that need a little extra tutoring help right now. And I would have loved the opportunity to do more cross-cultural and cross-generational mixing. That is one thing that bringing activities up to the hub will encourage. I wish it were more in place now, because I've been in touch with Verona administrators, and there are kids that had been struggling in school that have now virtually fallen off the radar, that are not attending virtual, that are not, and I really worry for them. And I would love to have said, oh, we've got a bunch of grandparent types that want to set up tutoring relationships with a kid or two.
Well, that's funny, Dorothy, because we talked about that as a staff yesterday. Just like, what can some of our, and we try to do this with the Boys and Girls Club too, a few years back. Like, what can some of our volunteers do to help, support maybe the youth? And we talked about that, about, all these kids that are at home right now trying to virtual school, and some with parents not there and some with parents there. But, is there a way to connect with some families that might need extra support, that maybe there are volunteers that would Zoom with these kids and answer questions, or, just have a presence if their parents still have to go to work and they're home all day alone. So that's been in the back of my mind too. I think every month you're like, well, hopefully this will end soon. And now you're just like, this is never gonna end. And so now we have to shift and say, okay, all right, let's keep being creative. So yeah.
But in general, the people that have always have needs have far greater needs right now.
Right.
That's true.
I wanted to encourage Fitchburg Family Pharmacy with their COVID and flu shot work that they're doing for free for the community. We need to encourage people to get relatively regular COVID tests. If there's any kind of change or any kind of question, go ahead and get a test. It doesn't cost anything. It provides reassurance, particularly with holidays coming up. We're going to have extra concerns about families getting together or not getting together. I rent a couple of rooms in my house here for part of my income, and we get tests just because different people in the household do different activities. So we get tested occasionally just to be sure that we're all still healthy.
Dorothy, are the tests, the COVID test at Fitchburg Family Pharmacy, do you need an appointment, and is there a fee?
It is appointment related. There is no fee.
Okay.
So you can call the pharmacy. They've got, I know, an online application you can fill out with your basic information and set up an appointment.
Okay.
Another thing that I wanted to mention, and I invoked the senior center in this, we are looking at a couple of potential layoffs in the city starting in the new year. The rec department, a lot of their budget is based around revenue that they get through recreational programming, which they haven't been getting and are not anticipating getting in the upcoming year. So the city is having to look at the potential for laying off a couple of the rec department employees. They're looking for ways to find money to keep them on. They were using CARES money to keep them the rest of this year, and they've been helping out with public works, extra projects that they can do. But that's a very serious issue that I'd like to help avoid. What I was talking about was working with Jill to see if there is senior contract programming that he could help over Zoom things, and work basically as a contractor to increase his income. Don't know what's possible, but I'd like to avoid layoffs if that is at all possible. So if you could, and anybody that might be able to help generate thoughts along those lines, and if Jill could work with other staff to kind of work at that.
Well, I know, like I don't know, Dorothy, I wouldn't know how we could generate revenue for them, but there are other rec departments that are doing a lot of virtual Zoom programs for kids. I'm not sure if they've investigated any of that or offer, you know what I mean? Like, they pretty much shut down and didn't do anything. And I know it's difficult, but are they exploring any opportunities to offer virtual programs for kids? Or, certainly we could partner with them, like the thing I talked about, tutoring kids at home. And, a lot of this is not revenue producing, but I think that the city would look favorably upon an attempt to offer some programs out there for some kids, and being creative that way. But certainly we're happy to partner with them.
But what they're saying is that there is plenty of work within the city for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
What there isn't is budget to pay their salaries to do
Right.
it.
Right.
That's the part that we have to figure out. So
Yeah.
we're hoping that between now and the end of the year, staff will find a pocket of money, or CARES Act money comes through
Mm-hmm.
for Don and others that might have a little bit of a voice in pushing for CARES Act money. That is another reason to help encourage that as a community. So there's so many issues going on, and
Yeah.
the city doesn't want to do layoffs, but at this point, it looks as though it might be necessary if we can't find a way to pay their salaries for next
Yeah.
year. So thinking caps, everyone. I'd had Quarry Ridge on my notes of things to talk about. The other thing that I had kind of wanted to mention while Wade was talking is that within that westmost neighborhood, we've been trying to put together something to help the teens. I've been talking for a number of years about what we can do. There's a lot of public safety issues and everything else with kids out stealing cars because it's the thrill of the moment, okay? There's a lot of huge issues, and in the budget discussions, we got turned down pretty solidly to try and start a teen center. The only thing that we got was $25,000 of city money to do a study of what we might need. That is contingent on finding $15,000 worth of matching funds to do the study. That's another place where we need some good intercultural and intergenerational help, because when you are a poor community isolated by yourself, and people say, well, get pulling on your bootstraps, go out, get a job. They don't own boots. How can they pull themselves up by their bootstraps if they have no boots? They need our help. So I would encourage people to give some thought to how, as a community, we can also, and what I wanted to suggest to Wade is, one of the points of resistance was, well, it's a nice idea, but staff isn't working on it, therefore it doesn't have value. And it's like, you mean something that is being brought forward by council members has no value because it's not in the staff thing? And Wade is working on this huge multi-year hub project. That is his focus. So now I'm going to end up needing to ask him to divide his focus and put some focus on the West End project as well. So it's kind of sad that council doesn't feel as though there's a lot of things that are important, and that West End has been being ignored by the city pretty much since it's been a city, which sucks for me as the alder for that part of the city. So, but hopefully we can get some movement. So I appreciate you guys hearing my rant.
Just a comment too that on the chat, Scott put up that on the Fact TV website, there's a lot of information about the Quarry Ridge groundbreaking. So if you just go to Fact TV, I think you can click on the link and learn more about that retirement resort.
Okay.
but I'll send stuff too.
Okay. Any other questions for Jill's director's report? Any announcements?
I do have a question. Sorry, I'm late. Is there going to be a giving tree this year?
Yeah, we'll be putting, Amy's working on that article. It'll come out in our newsletter,
Okay.
pretty soon.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, we're working on it right now. So we will have a giving tree, and identify the clients. Yeah,
Okay, it was a good question.
yeah, thanks, Barb.
Okay, our next meeting will be December 10th.
Yeah.
Zooming, right?
And we will have the county budget by then, which is status quo, from last year. I think maybe a slight increase, in case management money, but pretty much the same. So close to 89,000, I think. So yeah, so we'll need a quorum to pass that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned.